Yo, what is up everybody? I'm Alex from the Limited Level Ups YouTube channel, and I'm here to talk to you today about my favorite format, about why you should play my favorite format. As you might have guessed from the title card here, Limited. That's Draft, that's Sealed, and it's also a few bonus formats that they have exclusive to Arena that we're going to talk about today. So for those maybe not as familiar with Limited, maybe you've never even heard of Limited, maybe you've heard of it from a friend or online, you've heard it's really cool, but you're a little bit confused of what it's all about, I think of Limited as the counterpart to Constructed Magic. In Constructed, you've got to build a deck and you've got to get the cards together. You know, in Paper, you got to go buy them, or on Magic Arena, you got to redeem some wild cards or open some packs. In Limited, the cards are given to you in the event, which makes it so cool. You don't have to come with your own deck. You build or draft your deck as you go. So one of the reasons that's awesome is because you get to really exercise your Magic creativity, build decks on the spot with the cards you have. Two, if you are really into Constructed Magic, it's a really great way to collect cards. One of the trickiest parts about Constructed is just getting all the cards together. You know, if you're playing in Paper, you've got to trade for the cards or buy all the cards. And if you're playing on Arena, you've got to redeem some wild cards or open a bunch of packs. When you play Limited, you naturally get to build your collection as you're drafting, as you're building sealed decks. It's just one of the absolute best ways to get a bunch of cards that you can play in your Constructed decks. There's kind of a running joke in the Limited community that us Limited players, we have way more wild cards than we even know what to do with, which is kind of awesome because you just keep drafting. Eventually, you get the full set if you draft enough, and yeah, you can kind of build whatever you want in Constructed, which is really awesome. One more reason that I love Limited, and I think you should love Limited too, is it makes you a better Magic player. So if you're looking to hone your skills, I cannot show you a better place to do that than in Draft or in Sealed. You'll get better at combat math. You'll get better at deck building. Limited Magic is really, in a lot of ways, back to basics and fundamental Magic, and you really are able to hone those core skills that make a good Magic player a good Magic player. So if Limited sounds cool to you, something you might want to get into, but maybe you're unsure where to start on Arena, I want to walk us through 4 Limited game modes that you can find at all times on Arena. Those are Jump In, Sealed Deck, Quick Draft, and Premier Draft. And we're gonna go through those. I'll tell you what those are all about. Okay, so the first kind of Limited event we're gonna get into, and probably the best for beginners, the one that eases you into Limited, is Jump In. Jump In is great because it's pretty cheap. It's only 200 gems or 1,000 gold, and you get to play with a wide variety of decks, and it's not too difficult to build your deck. Once we get to Sealed, once we get to Draft, it gets a little bit more complex. You ramp up the skill level a little bit, but Jump In is very plug and play, which is really cool if you're just getting into this. So once you enter the event, you're gonna be presented with 3 different deck types with themes. I think there's about 10 or 20 themes that go on rotation that they'll present to you randomly, and I like Samurai, so I'm gonna click Samurai. This is half of your deck that you're going to be playing with. You go confirm pick, you're then presented with 3 more themes. So you got Wolfpack, Graveyard, Counters. I like Counters. Also, we have a white deck here. This has white in it, so that's a good idea to kind of mix it up here so you have a 2-color deck, not a 3-color deck. 3-color decks are definitely doable, but I would suggest going for a 2-color deck to start off with, and you go confirm pick, and you get your deck, you can take a look at it, and boom. You get some pretty powerful cards, you got some rares in there, but mostly, you know, you got uncommons and commons to play with, just like most normal Limited sets are. It's mostly about the commons and uncommons, even though you got, you know, a powerful card like Ledger Shredder, Restoration of Aganjo. You do have some really cool cards in there as well. And it's as simple as that. That's kind of all there is for Jump In. You can play out your deck as many times as you'd like. If you win a match, you get a prize card. You can resign at any time to craft a new deck. And of course, the most important part, you get to keep all your cards. You get to start building your collection. I think that Jump In is the best place to start if you're looking to get into Limited Magic. It's very plug and play. You get a wide range of decks you can play from. Your decks are going to be different every time. And of course, you get that limited gameplay feel where you're playing with a bunch of commons and uncommons, really scrapping it out, you know? All right, the next game mode I want to look at here is Sealed Deck. So let's say you've played a bunch of Jump In already. You want something that's a little more complex, a little more high stakes. I think the next place to go is Sealed. In Sealed, you're gonna get 6 packs, and of course, you get to keep all the cards. Once again, it's awesome. And you're gonna build a 40 card deck from those 6 packs. One of the reasons I think this is a good next step to take after Jump In is that you have all the time in the world to build your Sealed deck. You're not on a timer or anything like that. You can send it to your friends, be like, hey, what would you do with this deck? What do you think the most powerful cards are? You can post it on a Discord or tag your favorite content creator on Twitter. You know, you can really marinate in your deck and really come to the best build possible, really sit on it, or even play a few games and then go, you know what? I want to change my deck after. I don't like what's going on here. I realize that that this card I was playing isn't so good, switch it out for something else. You really get a lot of lenience in your deck building when you're playing sealed deck. If you want some guidelines, there is this window here. It tells you the 2 color archetypes in this set. Right now we're doing Dominaria United. It's kind of funny though. One of the suggestions I would usually give to people doing sealed or draft for the first time is stick to 2 colors because that's the most consistent. But Dominaria United actually has a lot of dual lands in the set, so you can play a 3rd or a 4th color. And there's a lot of sets like that. It's not specific to this, but a good rule of thumb is if there's a lot of lands at common, multicolor lands, you can stretch past 2 colors a little more often and play your most powerful cards. And if I'm to give you one big picture tip for sealed, it's play as many good cards as you possibly can. Look at your pool, take out all the best rares, look at the good uncommons. You know, I know sometimes people are a little bit sad when they don't open up good rares, but there's a lot of really powerful uncommons in most limited sets too. And just try your best to fit as many of those you can in your deck. Look at your lands to see if you can splash some good cards. Look at your green mana fixing to see if you can get more of those bombs in your deck. The puzzle for a lot of sealed decks is how can I fit in as many good cards as I can? Maybe they're even of 3 or 4 colors. And like I said, that's very doable in this set. If you can play more good cards in your deck than your opponents, that's a really good way to start winning. All right, our next game mode is quick draft. Now we're getting to the real exciting stuff. I have done thousands upon thousands of drafts in my Magic career, and it's really what's helped me fall in love with the game. It's my favorite game mode to play by far. Draft is amazing. It's really, really fun. The whole conceit of draft is you're sitting around a table with 7 other players, or a virtual table on Arena. You each get 3 packs. You open up your first pack, you take a card out of the pack and you pass it along. And of course, the person next to you passes their pack to you. And you just keep on taking cards you want to draft for your deck. And eventually you end up with a deck or a pool of cards that you can build a deck from. Draft can definitely be a little bit intimidating at first. It's a bit of an on-ramp just because there's a lot of moving parts. You have to look at 15 cards at a time, pick the best one, and then keep doing the same thing. Make sure you're drafting a coherent deck. But quick draft is a really, really great entry point to draft because you're not actually drafting with other players. You're drafting with draft bots. So it's going to have the exact same interface, but the great part is you won't have a timer. In normal draft and premier draft, which is what we're going to get to in a second, you have a timer about a minute per pack, and you got to make a decision quickly. But if, this is your first time drafting, one of your first few times drafting, instead, just like with sealed deck like I was talking about, what you can do is take a screenshot of the pack and show it to a friend or show it to somebody on Discord or Reddit or something, and somebody you think is more experienced than you, and say, hey, what would you take out of this pack? It's a really, really great way to ease yourself into the complexities of draft. But also, I don't want to scare you off of drafting. While I think there's a little bit of an on-ramp to get into it, the first few drafts might be a little bit rocky. Once you get into your 4th or 5th draft, especially if you're drafting the same set, you'll be seeing some of the same cards, you'll get more familiar with them, you'll figure out what the good cards are a lot quicker. It does get a lot easier, and you're gonna get into drafting good decks in no time. And the final way to play that I want to get to, of course, like I just mentioned, is Premier Draft, or traditional draft is very similar to. Premier is best of 1, traditional draft is best of 3, but both of them are you sit down at a table with 7 other players and you're drafting, just like you would at your local game store. Like I mentioned, the difference between this and quick draft is there is a timer in the draft for each draft pick, so you're not gonna have all the time in the world. I would recommend you get a little bit more familiar with the set and the cards before jumping into one of these. But surely, if I haven't gushed about it enough, this is, I think, the best way to play Magic, the most rewarding, the most interesting. There's so many interesting decisions when you're drafting and when you're building your deck and in gameplay. If you're a player who really values variety, maybe in Constructed you're somebody who bounces around between decks or doesn't like to play the same deck over and over, Limited and draft specifically, I really think is for you. And once again, while I do think draft can be a little bit tricky, a little bit intimidating, I want to leave you with some resources to get better at draft if that's something you're interested in. So of course, I will shout out my own channel and podcast, the Limited Level Up's YouTube channel. I also have a podcast where I talk about big picture limited concepts and specific formats each week. Gonna point you to the gold standard Draft Class 101, that is limited resources, hosted by Marshall Sutcliffe and Luis Scott Vargas. I think that is probably the place you should go even before you listen to my podcast. I would recommend them before me. They are just so good at what they do. They will get you better at limited in no time. They'll take you from 0 to 80% within a few episodes, I can promise. And if you want some more content, I would also point you towards Lords of Limited, which is a podcast hosted by Ethan Sachs and Ben Werney, who are two fantastic Limited players. If podcasts aren't your thing maybe, and you're more into YouTube or watching Twitch, I stream, so you can check me out at cord_o_calls on Twitch. I'm streaming there mostly every day. But I would also suggest Numat the Nummy, who is Kenji Igashira, fantastic Magic player, really entertaining to watch as well. And Amazonian, she's great too. She's really fun, really great environment, really great community, and of course, really good at Limited Magic. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it got you excited to play some Limited. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm gonna check them out. I'll see if I can answer any questions that you have. And happy drafting. Hope you open some good rares in your sealed pool, and I hope you have a good day.